Well, good morning. I'm here with Rick Bacon, the Chief Executive of Aqua Metrology Systems Limited, oftentimes referred to as AMS. When I see what Aqua Metrology is doing, it's very exciting, the work that's being done. And it's great to have an opportunity to talk with you, Rick, this morning. So why don't you start by giving us a little bit of a background on AMS?
So we talk about ourselves slightly tongue-in-cheek as an old startup. Well, we are an old startup. So we began about 10 years ago with a single mission, which was to develop an online THM analyzer. THMs are carcinogen produced in drinking water plants, and there was a need in the market for that. And the team of technologists, scientists, engineers who came out of the semiconductor industry, where online instrumentation was particularly important, took upon themselves to address that challenge, and very successfully, and within 2 years, had produced a very good product, which is our flagship product today. And we've got clients all over the world. But being mono-product, mono-market is a bit of a rather dangerous place to be. So we expanded that portfolio and have developed a broad range of online instrumentation for trace metals, so arsenic, chrome, selenium, all those sort of things. Again, contaminants of concern, regulated, but problematic in a broader range of industries than just municipal. And in the course of that, back in 2017, it seems like yesterday, we were asked to provide our analyzers to a series of projects in California that were addressing the hexavalent chrome, the Erin Brockovich story problem. So these very sophisticated or not so sophisticated treatment systems were being proposed to deal with the problem. And they needed real-time monitoring to find out whether they were doing what they said on the can. And it became very apparent to us, we worked on pretty much all of the projects our analyzers used for that, that these projects were, systems were very unstable, so they needed monitoring. But they were also very, very costly. And they were completely unsuitable for the bulk of communities in California that have a problem with hexavalent chrome. Lots of technologies today have been developed for big cities, for their big plants. And the problem of water quality is generally smaller communities that don't have the people, the money, the resources in general. So a great team of scientists here. I mean, it's just great to work with them. And we decided that we needed to tackle this problem head on. So we developed, patented a novel way of treating for hexavalent chrome. And it's been proven in the field, and it works far more cost effective, about a tenth of the cost of traditional systems. I'm talking about lifetime cost. So it's really disruptive. But this system, which is it's an on-site reagent generation system, which is one of the reasons it's so cost effective, we discovered subsequently that it addresses a broader range, far broader range of contamination problems: arsenic, mercury, hydrogen sulfide, you name it, manganese. And so we've been in the process of sort of transitioning from just instrumentation to now a completely integrated system, which incorporate those clever analyzers, but also now this very innovative treatment system.
So 10 years, you're a 10-year-old startup. So, and you're at this every day, and certainly there's a lot of challenges in water. So what really motivates you in your role as running the company as CEO? What's your motivator?
Well, there's probably, that's a good question. Why do I get up in the morning? There's probably two. Firstly, if I look at externally and my colleagues and what motivates them, really about making a change. It's desperately sad that with all the technologies out there still, even in this country, there are millions of people without access to safe, clean drinking water. And I regard that, wearing on my sleeve as a really serious equity issue that needs to be addressed. It's just not right. And we all feel the same. And so that's why this sort of mission of addressing it is so important to us. And I think, but the other thing is that yeah, I'm surrounded by these incredibly innovative people who just love finding solutions to difficult problems. You know, we've got 40 patents under our name, and they're all commercializable patents. So coming in and working with this band of inventors and innovators, whether it's on the technology side or thinking about new commercial models which would make this technology more accessible, it's really fun. I mean, I just can't get tired of it.
So, and I'm going to go back, and it's you mentioned that you've put together a system and a solution that fits the smaller utilities. So talk about that a little bit. I mean, certainly price is important there, but you know, there's 30,000 utilities, and it certainly is a higher cost for you to get to them. So how does that whole process work for you?
So the first thing to say is our system, which is, as I said, it's an on-site generation system. So is very cost effective, but it's totally scalable. So it's sort of like a modular system. So you have a small module if you're a small community, and bigger modules if you're a bigger community. So you know, it can treat particularly groundwater pretty much up to any size of groundwater supply that you're talking about. How do we reach that market? I think there's a really interesting challenge here, because there is a tremendous amount of inertia in this industry. And very frankly, part of our sort of cussedness is trying to break down some of those barriers. Yeah, an engineer will prescribe to a client ozone for treating, say, hydrogen sulfide, because it's a very big capital project, right? There's a lot more money involved in prescribing big, expensive, traditional technology than something that is far more cost effective, that actually provides for resource recovery in the case of something like hydrogen sulfide, than selling ozone. But if you look at the lifetime costs and all the obligations that go with that, it's terrible, when there are much more cost-effective solutions around. So part of our challenge is getting that message over. And that's why this conversation is actually quite good. I apologize to my engineering colleagues, but they probably know what I'm talking about. Getting the message over and then working with partners to reach the market is what our daily job is, you know, selling and selling value and selling solutions adapted to the needs of particular segments of the market. And we've been very successful at that. I mean, this year we'll probably grow at 30%, which is, you know, testimony to, despite COVID and all the other barriers to in business, we've managed to overcome pretty successfully.
You know, on the site, you talk about Safeguard H2O and the on-site reagent generation system. And certainly you've touched on that a little bit. Do you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, so we take tin or iron, you know, very available commodities, and essentially we electrolyze and we dissolve those metals into a side stream of the water to be treated, so we're not treating the total volume. And depending on the nature of the contaminant and the chemical properties of those two materials, tin and iron, which get converted into either stannous or ferrous, they can be both reducing agents as well as absorptive properties. And all this chemistry, the amazing thing is all this chemistry is well known. We didn't invent chemistry of these reagents. What we've mastered, and it sort of goes back to our instrumentation roots, is the ability to dissolve those metals under very, very tightly controlled conditions and then dose them according to need. So we're not throwing a whole bunch of chemicals, whether it's orthophosphates or ferric sulfate or you name it, at it. We're dosing according to need. And then where filtration is required, we can actually reuse the backwash. So it's also very efficient in terms of produced water efficiency. And all of that is integrated with our instrumentation. So we provide a package that I don't think many other companies can do, where you've got a sophisticated muscle, the treatment system, with a brain on top of it that tells it to go faster or slower or stop or start in a way that no other system can. And it's the integration of those two capabilities, our core sort of technologies that make the system so cost effective. And in a lot of places, I mean, I'll go on and on about this because I'm very enthusiastic about it, so you're going to tell me to stop in a minute. But a lot of problem with the traditional technologies is that, firstly, they essentially kick the can down the road. So if you talk about RO or exchange, they're going to take everything out of all the contaminants plus out of the water and create now a toxic problem that someone else has to deal with. Or manganese, it'll be filtered out with green sand or something, and then just the backwash sent down to the sewerage plant down the way, or ejected to a river. And all of that is just avoiding the problem. And these technologies actually remove the contaminants.
You have a very customer thoughtful technology. You're growing it last year, and probably one of the most difficult years to do business that we've ever seen. Why don't you, if you would, talk about one or two customers and the impact and result that from a specific customer's installation, and what they have realized.
So if we just focus on, say, the monitoring side to start with, and then we'll talk about the treatment. So there are wells in California particularly that can't be used because they need a treatment system, but without monitoring, and they have hexavalent chrome. And so those wells can't be used. There are treatment systems available, and the same applies to arsenic as well. But without monitoring the performance of those treatment systems, the state is never going to allow those wells to be used. So Cal American is a case, it's on our website. They've been open up a well, treat that water, and it's reduced their dependence on the Colorado River, which is the big thing. They can reduce imports of water because they're using groundwater that prior was too contaminated to be usable. So there are water sources that could be used, that if we can clean them up and control all of that, are beneficial. On the treatment side, a lot of it's regulatory driven. But if I look at the impending legislation here in California for reducing hexavalent chrome levels, the state, I'll take a city not very far from here, Los Baños, they've got 13 wells that are untreatable because of the levels of hexavalent chrome and other contaminants. And they went out to bid for solutions. And I think the quotes came in from the engineers for about $50 million, just the capital.
Wow.
They never talk about lifetime cost, which is another big issue. And it was untreatable for a range of reasons, but call it 40 to 50 million was going to be the bill. Los Baños, if you've ever been there, is a underserved community in the Central Valley. Very agricultural. And we worked on one of their wells. We could service that city capital for less, all the wells for less than $15 million.
Wow. Significant.
Yeah, it's huge. And the lifetime costs are, again, a fraction of what having to deal with ion exchange, reject, or RO, or any of the other alternatives. So, and that then makes that safe water available to so many more people, which goes back to our mission, right? People should not be denied access when there's technology available to do it. And we've just got to change the system to make these things available.
You've developed a relationship with GlobalWaterWorks. There's plenty of organizations out there, and certainly you're probably a member of other organizations, but why GlobalWaterWorks? What do you look at when you see GlobalWaterWorks and the relationship with Aqua Metrology?
I think there are two. Yeah, I know that this industry works through collaboration and networks. I mean, this conversation is sort of part of that, right?
Yes.
And sharing ideas and getting the message across. Yeah, we're a startup, so we don't have the voice and reach of the big players in this industry. But a lot of the decision makers and influence are actually on your platform. They're the people whose ears we need to reach. And they may in their own right not take the decision, but they are an important part of the, very important part of the conversation. So I see that as invaluable, and you're right that there are other platforms out there, but I've always found, and I'm glad you nudged me, that 5 minutes spent with you guys or a session spent with you guys is always hugely beneficial. And I think the other thing, just because I'm the way I am, you're a startup too, and as you know, I've been involved in sort of membership organizations. And I know how difficult it is to build a membership organization, but I know the value that lies within a membership organization. So I've sort of seen you as a parallel startup going through all the shadow of the valley of death. And it's fun to be sort of shoulder to shoulder with you guys on this journey to address water quality issues, which are so important.
Yeah. So look out, 12 to 18 months, where do you see, what are your goals, objectives that you see for Aqua Metrology over the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, I think if money was no object, and it always is when you're a startup, right? But casting that to one side, we have been very intentionally built like a walled garden here in the US, not planting flags around the world, which is sometimes sort of a vanity project for some companies. Right. So we stayed very, very focused, but by the nature of some of our treatment systems, arsenic, mercury, we're now getting a lot of interest from, not surprising, countries like India and China, particularly on selenium and things like that, arsenic. But countries like Malaysia, which are really coming up very, very fast in terms of investing in water quality and taking the whole water quality regulation thing very, very seriously. So I think in a controlled way, we're going to expand our international footprint, again, in response to the market. And that's probably our big next step, build from strength.
That's great. And certainly we're doing some things, and quite a few things actually in India. And we just started a project in Africa, but we've got a fairly significant group working on India, and certainly we'd like to bring into that group. Rick, this has been a true pleasure. Always is to speak with you. I always come away a little smarter than when I started when we have a conversation. Thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Well, thank you for giving me the time. It's really appreciated, and good luck with GWW. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.